Who are the players you should be targeting in DFS for DraftKings and FanDuel when you're playing Super Bowl 56 between the Bengals and Rams? It's time to roll out our DFS lineups for the big game here on Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. I'm on location here at Super Bowl 56. We're in our bunker here looking at DFS, and we're talking Bengals, we're talking Rams, and we're going to break it down for you to see how you want to build your lineup. And hint, you'll have a little bit of both in your DraftKings and FanDuel lineups here for the showdowns and the one-game slates. We're down to one game. That's what we have for fantasy football. We did break down the game in detail for you with the matchup. Now we're going to put it in a blender and spit out the values we like there across positions for our two games there on DraftKings and FanDuel. We'll also look at the Super Bowl MVP odds and where you can find the best value there. We'll get into more prop bets here before we close our look at Super Bowl 56 here. So just hold on tight for that. But we're going to look at the big one, which is the Super Bowl MVP, of which a lot of people have action on. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We are free and available for you on all platforms. And I do have to tell you, our title sponsor is GetUpside. Just download the free GetUpside app and use the promo code Touchdown. You get 25 cents per gallon cash back or more on your first tank. All right. Cleared my throat. Ready to go here and break down the DraftKings lineup first. We'll take that and then we'll look at FanDuel. Then we'll close the show looking at the MVP odds and the best values there. Sound good to you? Let's dive right into it here. So let's pull up my DraftKings lineup. Now, what do I think about here? Let's go down to my breakdown first. I said I liked a lot of the complementary receivers in this game, right? Because you get some tough coverage potentially on Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is also loaded and expensive on these formats. So that is a prohibitive thing there. So it is for Jamar Chase. He's expensive. But you could also see Jalen Ramsey in this game. And we know what performances T. Higgins and Odell Beckham Jr. had there in the championship games, both going more than 100 yards receiving. So I'm going to go back to that. Well, I feel comfortable about it here, the way these teams handle coverage. They will try to protect the big play as much as possible, whether it's Ramsey in shutdown mode or the Bengals with a combination of a corner and a safety. So these number two receivers that are really special. I mean, a lot of teams would love to have T. Higgins and Odell Beckham Jr., not the Browns, as their number one receiver here. But so that's where I'm starting here. And I look at how I want to be able to afford both of these guys. So the only approach there on DraftKings when you go for the 6-member team with the captain is putting T. Higgins as a captain. I like his value at 11,400. So I'm going to plug him in there. He's overachieved here. I think he's going to be big in this game for sure and really help Joe Burrow. And you got to have one of these quarterbacks in your lineup here when you're looking at DraftKings. So Joe Burrow is the guy I'm siding with. I like him to be the better performer in this game over Matthew Stafford. He's a little bit cheaper, so it's a no-brainer. So I immediately said, okay, T. Higgins, let's stack him here with Joe Burrow at 10,600. Makes a lot of sense. I'm not paying the 1.5 for the return, but Higgins is a little bit of a contrarian pivot away from what you would put there in that captain spot, but it also gives you the flexibility to have Joe Burrow in your lineup and also makes you avoid reaching too much here for your last pick. So Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, the most expensive players on the board. Everyone else is actually less than 5 digits here, less than 10,000. Let's start with the next player is Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon's also going to have a big role here. So Mixon, you look at the Rams' run defense by the numbers, you think Mixon will be contained, but he can catch passes. That's been a big part of what he does. He's also got good return on investment. When you look at 9,600, he's averaging 18.2 fantasy points per game on DraftKings. So he's already got close to 2K, right at 2K returns here for Joe Mixon. So I think he can do a lot more than that. He's been very effective catching passes in the playoffs. He's also a good threat to score in this game. A pretty guarantee. I mean, the wide receivers have been hit and miss, but I'm pretty sure that Mixon is going to score in this game. So that made sense. So I got Burrow and Mixon and Higgins. Can I afford something else in this Bengals offense? We'll come back to it. We want some pieces of the Rams offense. And we hinted that Odell Beckham Jr. was a good way to go here at 8,400 for his work here in the playoffs. He's been on point. You could also see Eli Apple, where Chidobe Awuzie figures to help on Cooper Kupp. Mike Hilton is also a guy that could see coverage on him inside. So I want to get Eli Apple, that target. We saw what Tyreek Hill was able to do at least in one half against Eli Apple. So we want Odell Beckham Jr. We know he's capable of spreading the field and stretching the field. And 8,400 is a good value here. So I still get a nice chunk of the Rams passing game, but I don't have to pay for the Cooper Kupp price. And I still feel good that I have Burrow, Mixon, and Higgins on the other side. Because, again, I like the Bengals to win game. I broke that down. So I want to go slightly more on the winning side here. That left me with 4,600. And Tyler Higbee did not look good for the Super Bowl here, really, the knee injury. So Kendall Blanton had a big game there in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. So that's a no-brainer to me. If you got leftover money, you got an actual starter who's going to see a key role. 4,600, good value there. So T. Higgins, Odell Beckham Jr. are our primary wide receivers. You got Kendall Blanton getting a little bit of tight end action at that price. I wanted to leave room for Tyler Boyd, and I got it at 5,400. So I've got Higgins and Tyler Boyd. CJ Uzomah is banged up. So I think when you look at it, Boyd would be the big beneficiary there, working in the middle of the field. The Rams are not as deep. Darius Williams is a pretty good number 2 corner, but they get thin at nickelback and safety. So Tyler Boyd should have a big role as well. So complementary receivers, get the top running back in the game. That's how we broke it down here. And we attached ourselves to Joe Burrow versus Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl. So exciting there. I like that lineup for sure, to get as many pieces as you can without stretching for a kicker or defense. I know Evan McPherson and Matt Gay have some appeal here. The defenses can be effective, but I'm not going with defense. I think it's going to be a higher scoring affair than the number says that's below 50. So that's how we go with this lineup here on DraftKings. Higgins, Beckham, Blanton, Mixon, Burrow, and Boyd is how it reads on my sheet here. So that's where we're going to go. And I think we're happy about those results for sure, just given the price points and entry. And we'll try to do the same with FanDuel, and we'll take care of that in our next segment. First, I got to tell you about Bet Online. It is a new betting year at Bet Online, and you've got to take advantage of all the amazing offers there. And look, it's a time that we want to get into it. It's the Super Bowl. Bet Online, as you covered this season, whatever season is, with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its final march to the playoffs, right to the big game here on Sunday. Bet Online remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, we'll get back and look at our FanDuel lineup here for Super Bowl 56. It's Super Week, brought to you by GetUpside. There's no bigger place to get coverage of the big game than the Locked On NFL podcast. Locked On Bengals and Locked On Rams are in LA all week covering the big game. I'll be guesting there, so check it out there. But I'll cross over with that show on the ground here for Sporting News. So excited about that, to bring some of my fantasy football insight to those series of shows here. So excited for that, excited for the game, excited to tell you about the FanDuel way of thinking here for Super Bowl 56. All right, so we have less players here. We have 5 to operate with. Now, my strategy here, again, is similar. So let's pull over some of the things I was thinking about with DraftKings and pull them into FanDuel. And it's wide receiver. So look at the prices here. And remember, we don't do the 1.5 here when we're doing the single game slate. So you have exact same price is T. Higgins and Odell Beckham Jr. So pretty interesting there that they're at the same price point. And it makes sense. They're the complementary receivers. I do like, again, Beckham working on the other side. T. Higgins also away from the likely Jamar Chase, Jalen Ramsey matchup. So these two guys, look, they came through. We're going to stick with them. The game plan makes a lot of sense to target these guys and put the attention on the other wide receivers. Kupp and Chase are the headliners, but I broke it down in Sporting News. I think the most important receivers in this game and determine the outcome are the number two so-called receivers. But again, these are guys that are number one in their own right, and we would think they're pretty good values based on their coverage matchups here. Again, I'll take T. Higgins versus Darius Williams or anybody else that isn't Jalen Ramsey all day long. And Beckham, again, hopefully we get the Apple situation. If not, he can work on Uzi a little bit, but I prefer him eating up Apple. And that's what you figure. Two Giants going at it, two New Orleans Tide people going at it. So Beckham and Higgins, again, good place to start there. Now, I mentioned how much I like Tyler Boyd in this game with CJ Uzama having trouble here, maybe being at full strength. Boyd is the pivot in the slot, and you see him at 8,500. Joe Burrow loves him in the middle of the field. I think he was quiet. We expected more from him against the Chiefs, but keep in mind, they have Tyrann Mathieu. They've got some ways to contain the slot where I think Rams are pretty weak there. They don't have that safety cornerback extra depth in those nickel situations. So when they spread the field, you figure there's no way that Boyd is going to see much of Jalen Ramsey in this game. So that's also good news. If Higgins sees a little bit of Ramsey or Ramsey gives him some cushion, there's that to have Tyler Boyd to balance it out if Boyd would have a big game there instead of Higgins, or if Higgins has a decent game but Boyd blows up, we have got that covered here for the Bengals on each side. So what did that leave me with here? I have good, more than $30,000 available here in salary. So the first thing I looked at is the price point of the quarterback. So I got Beckham, Higgins, and Boyd. Now, preferably I want at least one quarterback. So yeah, I'm going to follow my DraftKings situation here and look at Joe Burrow. Can I afford Joe Burrow? Again, look, the matchup might seem like it's tougher for Joe Burrow, but he's Joe Burrow. He's come through. It's going to be a shootout. Again, I like the Bengals to win the game, so I want to make sure I have Burrow in the lineup first. So I can stack Burrow, especially with Higgins and Boyd, in my FanDuel lineup. Now, what do I have left? I've more than 15,500, but that's all I need to get Matthew Stafford. So I've actually put Matthew Stafford in the MVP spot. So interesting. I've kind of balanced it out here at 15.5. I just like to put the most expensive player there. And again, Stafford, Burrow, it doesn't matter. This way I can get both quarterbacks in there, and I'm very confident about that because the scoring. So I do like Burrow, not necessarily maybe to have the bigger game because I've incorporated Joe Mixon. Now, would I have liked to maybe fit Joe Mixon into this lineup as well? Potentially, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Look, I have a stack now, a double stack of Stafford and Beckham there on one side, Burrow with really a triple there between Burrow, Boyd, and Higgins. So very intriguing how it kind of played out. But yeah, so Mixon I'm making as the cornerstone piece in the DraftKings lineup here that's unique. Matthew Stafford is the little pivot here in FanDuel. But yeah, two quarterbacks based on the returns and the numbers that you're going to get and the nature of this game. It's always good to attach yourself to quarterbacks. We know that in these type of formats. The trick is, can you work in both without sacrificing a lot in other positions? You can't do that on DraftKings, but you can get away with on FanDuel. So keep that in mind. It's important to look at the prices. They're different the way you break them down. The games we know are different. You don't have that load there to take the captain. So the MVP is a lot easier to get in a quarterback there on FanDuel. So look, this last game of the year that you can play there for NFL that counts. But again, this is a good way to think about it for next year. It's a good warm-up game there for if you haven't tried DFS yet and you've been following and playing the regular season fantasy football. The Super Bowl is a good place to start because, again, you can figure it out a little bit. There's a lot more information. People are breaking this down in depth all across the board. You also have the gambling aspects that get a little deep here, so you know kind of how the game will go. But I'm pretty confident here about this game going over the total and well over 50, and that's going to help. And I think again, as much as we think this will be a ball control type game and these teams are going to try to keep it away from the offenses, no, I think they're just going to try to score here. And these are the identities of these teams, right? They are passing teams at heart. They do have Joe Mixon on one side, and we have part of that, but they like to throw downfield, make big plays. They're not going to change their stripes here based on the way these opponents match it. So, I think, again, the one adjustment will be made is maybe it won't come as easily to Cooper Kupp and the Jamar Chase in this game. So there we go. We're covering our bases there with our look here. So we like it. Again, once again, we have some good Rams exposure. We have some good Bengals exposure. That's what we're looking for in our Super Bowl lineups here for DraftKings and FanDuel. We'll break down where we want to take this with our Super Bowl MVP betting in our final segment. We'll do that for you at the end of this break. But first, I got to tell you more about Built Bar. This time of the year, it's really hard to stick with my New Year's resolutions, but this year I can stick to it because of Built Bar. Eating right is easy because of Built Bar. It almost feels like not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't tried, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bar. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallow, they're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorites. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, that includes the Puffs. 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with them. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to Built.com and scroll to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low calories, high fiber, low carbs. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams sugar, 4 grams net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If you think a flavor might be good, it will be good. They'll make it for you at Built Bar. It'll be delicious, and it'll be good for you. All you have to do to go to Built Bar to get in on the great taste. The taste makes it delicious, and unlike any other protein bar, that's also healthy for you. I don't know how they pull it off, but they do it every time. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. We told you at the top, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by GetUpside. Hey, fantasy football fans, this is Vinnie Iyer with the incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called GetUpside. My listeners are earning cash back for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free GetUpside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use the promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up cash back. Don't pay full price to the pump anymore. Get cash back using GetUpside. Just download the app for free and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a year in cash back. There's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free GetUpside app and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN. You get 25 cents per gallon or more cash back in your first tank. That's the promo code TOUCHDOWN only at GetUpside. All right, time to close the show looking at our Super Bowl MVP odds, and let's check it out here and look at the latest odds here. And it's always a fun bet, and it's the easiest prop bet. So let's check it out here. I mean, it's at Sporting News, we have a complete breakdown, and we can look at the favorites for you, but really it's about getting the value. It's not looking at the favorites. So Matthew Stafford is an overwhelming favorite now. On FanDuel, he's at plus 115. So keep that in mind there. I kind of use FanDuel quite a bit as a good measuring stick there. And at 115 is where Matthew Stafford is. You have Joe Burrow around 230 here. So Joe Burrow immediately is a better value than Matthew Stafford. So we're going to stay there. And I feel very confident in Matthew Stafford versus Joe Burrow, who would be my pick for MVP. I think the Bengals are going to win. If that's the case, if it's a shootout, I'm going with Joe Burrow. Now, Cooper Kupp, man, 650. He's way better, plus 650 than Matthew Stafford. So the ones in the middle are the ones to target here. I mean, you get a little deeper, and we'll get into the long shot odds. But, yeah, Joe Burrow and Cooper Kupp stand out. I'm not going to pay up for Matthew Stafford with a little return here. Where Burrow, you have a pretty nice return for a guy that everyone's thinking that should be the Super Bowl MVP. He's everyone's favorite pick here. So if you want to go that route and you say, okay, it's a little chalky with Burrow is a lot better chalky than Stafford in this game. But Cooper Kupp, that's where I want to attach myself to. Wide receivers have won. We've seen that with Julian Edelman and Deion Branch when Tom Brady has won. We've seen it with Santonio Holmes it happens a lot here with the wide receivers winning. So, and Kupp figures to have a big game as usual. He might get rewarded almost as a season achievement award for the Super Bowl. So these are the best values by far in terms of feeling good about it without stretching. Aaron Donald, I'm going to pass on at 1,700. It's just very hard for a defensive lineman to win Super Bowl MVP. Jamar Chase, intriguing at 2,200, but he's got Jalen Ramsey, so we're going to avoid that. Odell Beckham Jr., I'm not buying at 25. This, of the long shots, is very intriguing to me, is Joe Mixon at 4,000 there. And right behind him is Von Miller at 5,000. Remember, Von Miller's a Super Bowl 50 MVP, so he's been there, done that, and disrupted things there against Cam Newton. We know the Bengals and their pass protection can be iffy. Von Miller on the edge could wreak havoc here as maybe the Bengals double team Aaron Donald. So that's a pretty good value there when you look at it. Joe Mixon at 4,000. I mean, he's right there with T. Higgins. So, I mean, if the Bengals can somehow get a lead in this one, they go downhill and Mixon has a big scrimmage game and scores, he's going to be in the mix. So 4,000 for Joe Mixon, way better value. I mean, Cam Akers is at 3,400. So a lot of this is based on the Rams winning. I have the Bengals winning, so I'm going to go for the values there. So let's look at it. And again, Von Miller, that's not a bad little hedging here because, again, the pass rush can be effective if the Rams were able to win. So that's part of it, is who do you think is going to win the game? Where do you want to feel? And how do you like it? So Burrow and Kupp are good things to play off each other, but Mixon is a nice one there to have in your back pocket. And Miller, again, if you've won the Super Bowl MVP before, you have a shot to do it again. We've seen it with quarterbacks, but it can also be true with defensive players, especially one that's facing the most sacked quarterback in the league. So I don't think you can go much deeper than that. I mean, it gets out of control. Maybe a Trey Hendrickson at plus 10,000. He could also have a big game rushing the quarterback here with Matthew Stafford to help the Bengals win. Create some turnovers. Evan McPherson could have 5 field goals. So you have him at also 10,000. So I don't want to go much deeper than that, but yeah. So among like the favorites there, easily you get the best value for, I would say, Joe Burrow and Cooper Kupp. Aaron Donald, again, plus 1,700 isn't so bad. Again, defensive tackle, if he was an edge rusher, and that's just the way it is, and Donald could have 3 sacks or whatever, and that could help him stand on this game, but extremely hard for defensive linemen. It's actually easier for linebackers and secondary players. We've seen it because they can get the interceptions and big plays there. So Donald, if he grinds and get 1 sack, I mean, he's going to have to get 2 sacks in this game. So Miller, again, if you're using that logic between Donald and Miller, Miller's a much better value there for your Super Bowl MVP. There's no doubt about it. Burrow, way undervalued. I think he should be the favorite here. The fact that he's not alone makes us intrigued by that for sure here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available for you on all platforms. Now make your next listen Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, featuring the expert analysis of Lee Sterling, their gambling, breaking it down for Super Bowl 56 and Bengals Rams. We'll be back here. We'll keep bringing it here. We'll look at all the other props here before we close out the week on Locked On Fantasy Football. Check me out there on location with our Locked On crew there on Radio Row for Locked On Fantasy Football. This has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great day, and we'll see you as we continue to break down the Super Bowl before we have kickoff on Sunday.